Yeah, we back. Goku and DC season 3 episode 11, man. This is gonna be a sad episode, man, but it had to be done because it wouldn't be the Saiyan saga if bodies didn't drop. So let's see how it happens. Let's get into it. The moment Nappa's smirk twisted into something truly sadistic, the League knew that they were in trouble. His massive frame tensed, his muscles coiled like metal springs beneath his battle-worn armor. The air around him warped as his golden aura flared violently around him as he tapped into the deeper well of his power at about 65% of his full strength. And the sheer force of it sent tremors through the battlefield. Heh, you like hiding in smoke? Nappa sneered, his voice dripping with malice. Let me show you how a real warrior does it. And before anyone could react, he raised his two fingers casual, almost mockingly, and then slammed them downward, and the earth detonated. A cataclysmic shockwave erupted beneath Nappa's feet, the ground shattering like glass as raw ki energy tore through the bedrock. Dirt and rock and debris vomited into the air in a deafening explosion, the sheer force of the blast kicking up a thick, impenetrable dust storm that swallowed the battlefield whole. The Flash's eyes widened. His super speed meant nothing if he couldn't see his allies through this chaos. Nappa's laughter boomed through the swirling debris. No more saving people, Speedster. The dust wasn't just obscuring vision. It was a trap. Every pebble, every fragment of shattered earth became a weapon, pelting the lead with the force of almost bullets. Batman shielded his face with his cape, whipping violently as the debris stung his exposed skin. Robin ducked low, coughing as dirt clogged his lungs, while Cyborg's optics flickered, struggling to recalibrate in the sudden sensory overload. And Nappa? He had fully vanished into the storm. The moment the dust storm erupted, Batman's lenses snapped into a thermal-like mode, the world shifting into a haze of reds and blues. He could barely make out the heat signatures of his allies. Robin's was smaller because he was crouched low. Flash was flickering outline, vibrating in place. Cyborg's mechanical frame glowed hotter than the rest. But Nappa, his massive energy output, should have been blazing the beacon, yet the sand signature was scattered. Batman's jaw tightened. He's moving too fast. Cyborg's voice cracked over the comms, strained. Optics are compromised. Particle interface is messing with my scans. Batman didn't hesitate, switched to seismic tracking. His footfalls would displace more ground than debris. Cyborg's systems whirred as he recalibrated, his arm cannon shifting into a sonar emitter. A pulse rippled outward, mapping vibrations in the earth. For a split second, nothing, then thud, deep and heavy, rattling the bedrock that was beneath him. Got him, Cyborg barked. East side, closing fast, but it was too late. The moment Cyborg's seismic pulse rippled outward, Nappa's scouter, though fried, hadn't been his only tool. His Saiyan instincts, honed through decades of battle, screamed at him to take out the Metal Man first. Cyborg's optics flared as his sensors locked onto the vibration, right as Nappa's massive form blurred, not away from the tracking, but along its path. The dust storm swirled around him like a living thing as he closed the distance in less than a heartbeat. Gotcha, Tin Can. Cyborg barely had time to register the looming shadow before Nappa's fist slammed into his chest plate. The impact was catastrophic. Titanium alloy crumpled like foil. Circuits sparked and died, and the sheer kinetic force sent Cyborg rocketing backward like a cannonball as his body tore through the dust cloud, carving a trench through the battlefield before smashing into the mountainside with a thunderous crack. Rocks shattered, the cliff face collapsed in an avalanche of debris, burying Cyborg beneath tons of stone. The echo was followed by silence. Nappa cracked his knuckles, rolling his shoulders. Yeah, no more chatter with you. The comms in the League's ears dissolved into static as Batman's blood ran cold because their eyes were gone. The dust swirled, thinning just enough to reveal Nappa's hulking silhouette. His massive fists clenched around Batman's collar, lifting the Dark Knight off the ground like a rag doll. Batman's boots dangled helplessly, his cape fluttering in the wind as Nappa leaned in close, with his jagged teeth bared in a grin that promised agony. Let's see if a bat can fly in space. Nappa sneered, his breath hot against Batman's cowl. The League froze. Robin's breath hitched, Flash's fingers twitched, ready to vibrate into action. But one wrong move and Nappa's grip could snap Batman's neck before he even took a step. Nappa's free hand crackled with violent energy. His smirk widened as he gauged their fear. You bugs think you're so clever, hiding in smoke, playing tricks. His fingers tightened, the fabric of Batman's suit straining under the pressure. But here's the thing about Saiyans. We don't just break our enemies. We erase them. His voice dropped to a guttural growl when he said it. Batman's eyes narrowed behind his cowl, calculating, searching for an opening. But Nappa wasn't going to give him one. The Saiyan warrior's muscles coiled, his stance shifting as he prepared to launch Batman skyward, not just into the air but beyond the stratosphere, into the void where no human would survive. The flash's body flickered with Speed Force energy, his mind racing. I think I have to move now. Let's see if I'm fast enough. Then, the moment Nappa's grip tightened around Batman's throat, the air itself seemed to ignite. A searing green light tore through the dust-choked battlefield. A comet of emerald fury streaking toward the Saiyan with pinpoint precision. Nappa's scouterless instincts flared. His head snapped up just in time as a starbolt slammed into his chest with the force of an energy missile. Boom! The explosion lifted Nappa clean off his feet, his massive frame hurtling backward as flames licked at his scorched armor. Batman dropped to the ground, rolling into a crouch as the shockwave rippled outward, dispersing the last remnants of the dust storm. The League's heads whipped toward the sky, where a familiar figure hovered, with her fiery hair whipping in the wind, her eyes glowing like twin suns. You will not hurt him. Starfire's voice was molten steel, her hands crackling with fresh energy. Nappa skidded to a stop, his boots carving trenches in the earth. His lips curled, blood trickling from a fresh cut that was on his brow. Another pest. He spat on the side, cracking his neck. You got some fire, girl. Let's see how long it burns. Robin's breath was caught. Star? She didn't glance his way. Her gaze was locked on Nappa, her stance radiating lethal intent. I have been away too long, she said, but I had to come back to help my friends. Nappa's grin returned, wider and crueler. Good. I was getting bored anyway. The rubble shifted behind Nappa as Aquaman emerged, his orange armor dinted, his face streaked with dirt and blood, his trident gleamed in the sunlight, his prongs hummed with latent energy. Every step he took was deliberate, his jaw set with grim determination as he moved to stand beside Starfire. Starfire didn't take her eyes off Nappa, but her stance shifted slightly, acknowledging that the Atlantean King's presence was around her. You are injured, she noted, her voice low. Aquaman spat blood onto the dirt, rolling his shoulders. Nothing I haven't walked off before. His sharp eyes flickered to her, assessing. Listen, you've got power, but this guy, he's not going down with brute force alone. Nappa cracked his knuckles, grinning. Ah, look at this. The fish man's still kicking. And now he's got backup. His tail lashed behind him. How cute. Aquaman ignored the taunt, speaking quickly under his breath. He's strong, but he's arrogant. If we hit him together, not just raw power, we might be able to come out on top. Starfire's fingers crackled with fresh starbolts. Then follow me. Starfire didn't hesitate. With a burst of emerald energy, she rocketed skyward, her fiery hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail. Nappa's eyes locked onto her. His earlier amusement was twisting into something darker. Rage. The starboat had stung not just his body, but his pride. You think running to the skies will save you? He roared, his muscles coiling as he launched himself after her, the ground catering under the force of his leap. The air screamed around him as he ascended, his massive frame cutting through the atmosphere like a missile. Below, Aquaman didn't waste a second. Go, he barked, breaking into a sprint as the rest of the League scrambled to follow. The Flash was already a crimson blur, vibrating with restless energy as he darted ahead. Batman's voice cut through the chaos. Do not engage him alone. We hit him as one. Robin's fingers tightened, the metal staff in his hand, his gaze locked onto the shrinking figures of Starfire and Nappa. She's going to lead him into a trap. Batman's jaw clenched. Yeah, let's make sure she doesn't pay for it. Starfire's emerald energy blazed like wildfire as she unleashed a relentless barrage of starboats, each one crackling with the raw power that was boosted by Tamaran's tree of might fruit. The green projectiles streaked through the air, their eerie glow reflecting off the water surface as they hammered into Nappa's chest, shoulder, and face. The Saiyan warrior's smirk faltered for the first time. These weren't mere energy blasts like usual where he could just tank. They actually burned. Then crack. Boom. The force of the impact sent Nappa skidding backward, his boots digging furrows into the shoreline before the momentum carried him into a lake. Water erupted around him as he crashed beneath the surface, the shock wave sending ripples cascading outward. Starfire hovered above with her chest heaving, her fingers still sparking with residual energy. The League watched, breath held as the water churned violently, then stilled, followed by a beat of silence. And then, splash! Nappa burst from the depths, his armor dripping, his bald head glistening, but instead of rage, his face spit into a mocking grin. That tickled. He swiped water from his brow, flexing as if testing for damage. You used all that juice just to get me wet, girly. Starfire's eyes narrowed. No. And behind Nappa, the lake's surface rippled. Starfire's lips curled into a knowing smile as she hovered above the lake's surface, her emerald eyes locked onto Nappa's dripping form. You misunderstand, she said, her voice carrying an edge of triumph. We are not the only ones in these waters. Nappa's grin faltered, his instincts flared a split second too late. Then, the lake erupted behind him. Aquaman surged from the depths like a tidal wave given form, his trident gleaming in the sunlight as he drove his full weight into Nappa's back. The impact was brutal, bone-jarring even for the Saiyan, as the Atlantean King's enhanced underwater strength sent them both crashing beneath the surface. Water swallowed them whole, the churning currents masking the struggle that was below. Nappa thrashed, his massive limbs uncoordinated in the unfamiliar terrain. His tail lashed wildly as his muscles strained against the resistance of the water, slower and heavier, and being pulled down by an enhanced Aquaman, his usual explosive speed muted by the drag. Aquaman, however, moved like a predator in his own element. His trident pole was locked on Nappa's neck. Gritting his teeth, Nappa's eyes darted upward toward the distant shimmer of sunlight that was above. He needed air. He needed leverage. His body began to glow. A sickly yellow aura erupted around him, the water boiling as his ki surged uncontrollably. Aquaman's eyes widened. With a powerful kick, Aquaman disengaged, rocketing backward just as Nappa's energy detonated. Boom! The leg exploded upward in a geyser of steam and concussive force, the shockwave rippling outward like a bomb had gone off beneath the surface. The moment Nappa's energy explosion sent a geyser of steam and water towering into the sky, Robin's mind raced. The battlefield was a ruin, Cyborg was buried, Aquaman was battered, Starfire was draining from her assault, and Batman and his gear were destroyed, and Flash's fists were trembling from overexertion. They couldn't keep this up. Nappa wasn't just strong, he was adapting. And if they didn't end this now, his rage would turn the entire battlefield into a fallout crater. Robin's fingers tightened around his staff, his voice cutting through the chaos. We have to hit him together, now. One shot. Everything we've got left. Nappa's grin twisted into something monstrous as he raised his palm, energy crackling between his fingers. The League tensed. They knew what was coming. Another explosion, probably going to suffocate them in a dust storm and pick them off one by one like prey. Round 2, Bugs. And with a roar, he raised his 2 fingers. Boom! The earth detonated, a shockwave of force and debris erupting outward, and a tidal wave of dirt and rock. The dust storm built up instantly, thick and impenetrable, swallowing the battlefield whole. Nappa vanished into the chaos, his laughter echoing from all directions at once. Batman's voice cut through the comms. Flash! The speedster was already moving. His body became a crimson blur, his arms a whirlwind as he spun in a tight, accelerating circle. The air screeched around him, the friction igniting sparks as he pushed his speed to the brink. Gotta clear the air. Flash gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of his remaining energy into the maneuver. Come on, come on. The dust trembled and then rippled. A vortex formed, swirling faster and faster as Flash's spinning figure became the eye of a manufactured red tornado. The winds howled, sucking the choking debris upward, dispersing it into the atmosphere in a widening spiral. The battlefield came back into view, inch by inch. Starfire didn't hesitate. The moment Flash's tornado dispersed the dust storm, her hands were already alight with emerald fury. Every ounce of power she had left, every spark of Tamaranian energy amplified by the Tree of Mind's fruit, coincided into a single searing starbolt between her palms. The air itself hissed, superheated by the raw energy, as she drew her arms back, her muscles trembling from the strain. Now! She roared, thrusting her hands forward. The blast tore through the battlefield like a comet, a roaring pillar of green fire that scorched the earth beneath it. Nappa's eyes widened, not in fear, but in challenge. His lips peeled back into a snarl as he planted his feet, his own aura erupting around him in a violent yellow inferno. You think that's going to stop me? he bellowed, crossing his arms before shoving them outward. A torrent of violent ki erupted from his palms, colliding with Starfire's bolt in a cataclysmic explosion of opposing energies. The impact was deafening. A shockwave rippled outward, flattening the already ruined landscape as the two beams struggled for dominance. The ground beneath Nappa's feet liquefied, molten rock bubbling up as he skidded backward, his boots carving trenches through the earth. Starfire hovered mid-air, however, her teeth gritted, her arms shaking as she poured every last drop of her strength into the blast. The beam struggle illuminated the battlefield in the alternating pulses of green and violet, the very air vibrating from the sheer force of their clash. For a moment, neither yielded. Then Nappa's muscles bulged. His veins stood out like cables beneath his skin as he dug deeper, tapping into reserves of power he hadn't yet shown. His ki flared brighter, his beam inching forward, overpowering Starfire's inch by inch. Her eyes widened. She was losing. And then Nappa's roar of triumph was cut short as an ear-splitting screech tore through the battlefield. A high-frequency sonic pulse amplified to unbearable levels. The Batmobile, sleek and black as a shadow, streaked onto the scene, its mounted speakers blaring a discordant wave of sound engineered to disrupt even the most hardened warrior's balance. Because Batman had used his wrist gadget to bring the Batmobile on the battlefield. Robin was the one in the vehicle, his palm onto the control panel, upping the output. The sonic waves intensified, vibrating the air itself, rattling Nappa's skull like a hammer against glass. The Sand's pupils contracted, his focus fracturing as the noise drilled into his inner ear, the sensory overload his enhanced biology couldn't instantly adapt to. His beam wavered. Starfire didn't waste the opening. With a scream of effort, she pushed her starbolt harder, the emerald fire surging forward as Nappa's cleat flickered erratically. His arms trembled, his stance wobbling, just for a heartbeat, but it was enough for her to regain some ground. Then the sky split apart as Aquaman's trident became a conduit for raw fury from the sky. Lightning crackling and white hot, lanced down from the storm churned heavens, drawn to the enchanted prongs like a magnet. The air itself sizzled, ozone thick and acrid as the Atlantean king channeled the storm's wrath into a single devastating blast. Nappa's scowl deepened as the bolt struck from behind, searing through his already battered armor. His muscles locked, his tail stiffening as electricity ravaged his nervous system. The violet ki beam he'd been maintaining against Starfire flickered widely, its output destabilizing as his body fought against the dual assault. Starfire's emerald starbolt surging forward, Aquaman's lightning coursing through him, and the Batmobile's sonic onslaught was scrambling his equilibrium. And yet the Sand Warrior didn't fully buckle. His boots dug deeper into molten earth, his teeth ground hard enough to splinter bone, his blood trickled from his nose and his ears, his split lip, but his arms remained locked, his cleaves flaring defiantly, his aura pulsed like a dying star, sputtering but refusing to be extinguished. Pathetic! Ah! Nappa roared, veins bulging as he forced his beam to stabilize inch by inch. Agonizing inch. The ground beneath him cracked further, the pressure of its energy warping the battlefield, but the cracks in his defense were definitely showing. His breath came in a ragged, labored heaves as his arms trembled, not from fatigue, but from the sheer overload of punishment. Starfire's starboat inched closer, Aquaman's lightning still arcing through his body, the sonic waves disorienting his senses. For the first time since the battle began, Nappa was truly on the back foot, and the League knew it. The battlefield trembled under the weight of the energy clash. Starfire's starboat surging against Nappa's faltering being, Aquaman's lightning still arcing through the Sand's body, and the Batman's sonic assault was still disorienting him. But despite the onslaught, Nappa was refusing to fall. His muscles bulged. His veins were like cables as he fought to regain his control. His grin never completely faded. Then, from the wreckage of the mountainside, a figure emerged, limping, battered, but unbroken. Cyborg dragged himself forward with his metal consists sparking, his organic side bruised and bleeding. His optics flickered, struggling to maintain focus, but his voice was steady as he locked eyes with Starfire and Robin. Rob, he rasped, a faint painted smile tugging at his lips. Glad we got to see each other again. One last time. Robin's breath hitched. Sigh, what are you? Starfire's glowing eyes widened in realization. Victor, no. But Cyborg was already moving. With a roar of effort, he activated his last reserves of power, his entire body lighting up as his systems surged beyond their limits. His chest plate split open, revealing the unstable core of his energy source. Titans, together, he muttered, stepping forward beside Starfire. Cyborg's system screamed in protest as he overrode every safety protocol, every failsafe, forcing his energy core to surge beyond its limits. Warnings flashed across his HUD in crimson. Critical overload. Shutdown imminent. He ignored them, his optics locked onto Nappa's snarling face. The Sand's yellow beam still clashing against Starfire's starbolt, the battlefield trembling under the strain. His voice was a ragged growl, power levels maxed out. With the roar, Cyborg's chest plate split open, revealing the searing white core of his energy source, now pulsing erratically. His arm cannon reconfigured one final time, the barrel glowing molten red as it siphoned energy, every last jewel of power from his failing systems. The air around him crackled, warping from the sheer heat radiating off his frame. Eat this! Booyah! A beam of pure unfiltered energy erupted from his cannon, wider, brighter, more devastating than anything he'd ever unleashed before. It tore through the battlefield like a solar flare, slamming into Nappa's chest with the force of a collapsing star. The Sand's eyes widened as the combined might of Starfire's starbolt, Aquaman's lightning, and now Cyborg's overloaded blast overwhelmed his defenses. For a split second, Nappa's beam wavered. Then it was completely absorbed by the other blast. The explosion that followed was apocalyptic. A blinding sphere of light consumed the battlefield, the shockwave flattening everything in a half-mile radius. The League was hurled backward, their bodies skidding across the ruined earth as the fireball mushroomed into the sky. When the smoke cleared, Nappa was nowhere to be found. Cyborg's systems flickered once, then went dark. Victor, Starfire whispered, her voice breaking. But the battlefield was silent. The dust hadn't even settled before Flash was moving. 1 second, Cyborg stood silhouetted against the apocalyptic blast, his body a smoking, sparkling wreck, his systems pushed beyond their breaking point. The next, he was collapsing forward, his metal frame searing hot, his organic skill pale and lifeless as his eyes rolled back into his head. No. The Flash blurted into motion. His arms outstretched as he caught Cyborg before he hit the ground. The heat radiating off his friend's body was unbearable, even for the speedster. Victor's armor was half melted, fused to his skin in places, his chest plate still glowing faintly from the core overload. His optics were dark. No pulse, and no systems were online. Stay with me, Vic. Come on, stay with me. Barry's voice cracked as he frantically checked for signs of life, but there was nothing. But the speedster didn't believe in a lost cause. He looked up, locking eyes with Batman, who was already barking orders into his comm. Batmobile's too slow. I need an immediate med evac to Star Labs, but Barry couldn't wait. Every second counted. Gritting his teeth, he adjusted his grip on Cyborg's limp form, ignoring the burn searing into his own gloves. Hang on, buddy. I'm getting you home. Then, whoosh! A streak of scarlet lightning tore across the battlefield, vanishing into the horizon. The League could only watch breathless as their last hope for saving Cyborg raced against time itself. The battlefield was eerily silent in the wake of Cyborg's sacrifice. The League stood frozen, their breaths ragged, their bodies battered from the apocalyptic clash. For a fleeting moment, they dared to hope that Nappa was gone, vanished in the blast. Then, Robin gasped. A wet, choked sound escaped his lips as his body jerked forward, his eyes widening in shock. His hands trembled, fingers twitching uselessly at his sides before slowly lifting as if in disbelief toward his stomach. There, protruding from the side of his abdomen, was a massive bloodied fist, and time seemed to slow. Blood dripped from the Sand's knuckles, splattering onto the scorched earth that was below. Robin's knees buckled, his staff slipping from his grip as he stared down at the grotesque sight. Nappa's arm buried to the wrist inside him. The pain hadn't even registered yet, only for the surreal horror of it. Behind him, Nappa's ragged breathing filled the air. His massive frame hunched and wounded, but far from dead. His armor was gone, his chest and arms a mess of burns and lacerations. His face was half melted from the blast, yet his grin remained, twisted and feral as his teeth stained red as he leaned in close to Robin's ears. Bet you thought I had kicked the bucket, huh? Robin's mouth opened. No words came out, only a weak gurgling cough as blood spilled past his lips. His vision blurred, his legs giving out completely as the world tilted. Then darkness. Robin! Starfire screamed toward through the battlefield, raw and shattered. Batman was already moving, his cape whipping behind him as he lunged toward his vehicle. The world narrowed to a single horrifying image as Robin's body collapsed, Nappa's bloodied fist pulling free with a sickening shick. Batman's breath caught in his throat. His veins turned to ice. For a fraction of a second, the battlefield ceased to exist. Then there was only... Pause. How I wrote this sounds crazy. There was only Dick, limp and broken. Why did I word it like that? Anyway, Crimson pulling beneath him. Then instincts overrode shock. His fingers flew across the battlefield's console, slamming the sonic emitters to maximum. The speaker screamed, unleashing a wall of sound so intense it liquefied the air. Nappa reeled, his hands flying to his ears, his face contorting in agony as the frequencies drilled into his skull. His balance faltered just enough. Batman didn't hesitate. The Batmobile's engines roared as he aimed the vehicle like a battering ram, tires shredding earth as it accelerated straight for Nappa. The Saiyan's head snapped up, his bloodshot eye locking onto the charging machine. Crack! The impact sent the Batmobile flipping end over and in, metal screeching as it crumpled against the mountainside. Batman's body was thrown in the impact like a rag doll, like a crash dummy. His ribs cracking against the steering column before the reinforced cockpit caved in around him. Glass shattered and smoke billowed. Nappa staggered, but his grin never wavered. He spat a glob of blood onto the wreckage. Pathetic. Inside the wreck, Batman lay motionless, his last sight before darkness swallowed him. Robin's still form growing smaller within the distance. Starfire's vision tunneled, pulsing, consumed by rage she had never known. The sight of Robin's broken body, the sound of his choked gasp as Nappa's fist tore through him, ignited something primal within her. The world blurred, rational thought evaporated. There was only the monster before her and the fire that was in her veins. She would avenge Cyborg and Robin. Her scream was raw, guttural, less a battle cry than a wounded animal's howl. She didn't think, she didn't strategize, she simply moved, her body a streak of emerald light as she rocketed toward Nappa with reckless abandon. Her fists crackled with unstable energy as her starboats flared wildly, untamed, and Nappa's grin widened. Too easy. He didn't dodge, he didn't brace, he simply waited. His massive arm cocked back, muscles coiled like a viper ready to strike. The moment Starfire was within reach, he swung. Smack! His forearm connected with her throat in a brutal clothesline. The impact lifted her off her feet. Her momentum died instantly, her body folding around his arm like a snapped branch, the air exploding from her lungs, her vision whitening out as she was hurled backward. Boom! Her body smashed into a nearby boulder, the stone splintering on impact. Dust and debris erupted as she crumpled to the ground with her limbs splayed, her fiery hair matted with dirt and blood. She gasped, her fingers twitching, her body refusing to obey. Nappa cracked his neck, rolling his shoulders. And here I thought you'd put up the most fight. He stepped forward, his shadow almost swallowing her form whole. The moment Nappa's energy-wreathed fist descended toward Starfire's skull, time seemed to fracture. The air itself screamed in protest, the sheer force of the blow warping space around his knuckles. Starfire's vision swam, her body too broken to move. Her mind barely registered in the killing strike, until a blur of orange and gold crashed between them. Aquaman's roar was raw, primal, as he threw himself into the path of destruction. His trident was left behind so he could make it to Starfire fast enough in time. His armor was tattered, his body battered, but his will was unbroken. He extended one of his arms to meet the impact, seawater still dripping from his hair as he met Nappa's strike head on. Crunch! The sound was grotesque, wet, splintering, final. Nappa's fist, sheathed in a crackling yellow key, tore through Aquaman's forearm like a sledgehammer through wet parchment. Bones shattered and flesh vaporized. The Atlantean king's arm was severed, clearly just below the elbow. The dismembered limb spinning through the air before thudding to the dirt in a spray of crimson. Aquaman didn't scream. He gritted his teeth, his remaining hand clamping around Nappa's wrist, halting, the fist mere inches from Starfire's face. Blood gushed from the ruined stump, his muscles trembling, but his grip was ironclad. Nappa blinked, then laughed, a low and incredulous chuckle. You really just did that. Aquaman spat blood onto the sand's boots. For Atlantis, and for my comrades. You will fall, demon. With a brutal twist, he wrenched free and reared back for the killing blow. Then the air screamed as a green blur tore across the battlefield, moving faster than the eye could track. Nappa's fist was mere inches from caving in Aquaman's skull when the sand's instincts saw something too late. Thoom! A massive boot slammed into Nappa's ribs with the force of a meteor strike. The impact lifted the sand clean off his feet. His body folded around the blow. His eyes bulged as a spray of blood erupted from his lips as he was launched backward like a rag doll skidding across the ruined earth before crashing into the lake with a colossal splash, followed by silence. Then slowly the waters rippled, stream rising from where Nappa had sunk beneath the surface. Standing where the sand had been was a towering, muscle-bound figure, his green skin glistening under the sunlight, his crimson eyes burning with cold fury, his black gi untouched by the carnage that was around him. Piccolo. His arrival had been silent, his presence absolute. Aquaman, clutching his bleeding stump, looked up at the Namekian, his breath ragged. Took you long enough. Piccolo didn't even glance at him. His gaze remained fixed on the churning water. Then the lake erupted. Nappa burst from the depths, his face twisted into a snarl, his body smoking from the heat of Piccolo's kick. Who the hell are you? Piccolo's fingers curled into fists. The last thing you will ever see. And that's where we're going to end on that, man. Piccolo has arrived, man. It was sad to do what I had to do, but, like I said, hey, some people had to go. Even though I had plans for, well, I ain't going to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. But, hey, man, let me know if you guys like it. Like, share, subscribe, all that, man. Till the next one. Go.